You're listening to Pro Talk Wrestling with NateFNGreat. Hey, what's up, you guys? This is NateFNGreat. Welcome to Pro Talk Wrestling, of course, part of the Game Changer podcast, of course, on Spreaker.com, iHeartRadio, Spotify, the one and only YouTube, and SoundCloud, as well as I hopefully would believe Google Podcasts. So, well, let's hope that went through. But, so, a lot of times I go into these shows with a little bit of, preparedness and having like reviews of what I think about, wrestling shows and stuff like that. But this time around, it's going to be a little bit different. I do have a bit of an announcement to make at the end of the show that is definitely going to make things a lot more exciting. I think it's going to be a great step in the next generation, into the next chapter of what the Game Changer podcast will have. But before I go any further, there was an announcement that was made earlier this week that does indeed hit me pretty hard. And it hit a lot of people very hard. And that was the announcement that Rant with Ant, one of our friends of the podcast, and one of the best wrestling-related podcasts in all of podcasting, I will definitely make that statement and definitely not take it back. They are seemingly closing the doors to their podcast. They have gone on record to say that this is just a mutual thing. Everybody is going in a different direction, so they're kind of just saying that it's time to let Rant with Ant end. And even after days of hearing this announcement, I'm still very flabbergasted, very just speechless at this announcement, because I didn't think that this would happen at all. They had the big event, Rant Gala. They did the tailgate parties in this last year. Obviously, last year they got nominated for podcast and won Podcast of the Year 2018. It's one of those things where it's like they're getting on this momentum, and just like that, it's over. And I'm not showing any resentment to these guys. I've met all three of them. Incredible people. They are just absolutely phenomenal, and I wish nothing but the best for them. It's just still one of those situations where I think I'm still in the denial phase that this is even happening, and it probably won't reach the acceptance stage until the final show, where I can say, okay, this is happening. It's time to accept this. So be sure to tune in to that show, guys. It's going to be happening in June. I believe it might be June 4th or 7th. I'm going to just double check on that. That way I can get the right information, because I really do not want to screw up when it comes to this. Like I said, all three of these individuals, you have June 8th. June 8th is the final date for the podcast. Again, it's just still very much, can't believe it's really happening. So, usually I do go into these podcasts talking about, Raw, SmackDown, maybe a little bit of wrestling shows, stuff like that, but I kind of reached a point with this week's television show where I am honestly on the verge of just being absolutely, I'm pissed. I'm legitimately pissed about how they are booking WWE's talent, how WWE is just continually getting dumber by the week with how they're doing these things. And it all started with this Monday. Vince McMahon announced this wild card, deal where basically 4 members of Raw and 4 members of SmackDown can basically rotate from the brands, and they can come on and they can do whatever they want. It's one of those things where it takes away the nostalgia of what we would have when we go to the Survivor Series event, where it's, Raw versus SmackDown, the one time a year where they can fight each other, and now we're taking that away. Because literally, you could have built up a great matchup, say maybe the Usos versus Daniel Bryan and Eric Rowan, and they just did that this past week, where Bryan and Eric Rowan won the tag team titles. But you kind of get the point I'm trying to make, is that you're taking away so much of what could have been a built-up deal for Survivor Series. Unless you plan on making a huge event or a huge matchup that you can definitely delay off until, Survivor Series, all these matches are just going to happen. There's going to be no nostalgia. There's going to be no big-time feel for these matches. It just will not happen. So I'm against this wildcard play idea that they had. The only thing I guess we can give credit to where credit is due is that Lars Sullivan came in. He wrecked everybody's shit on Raw, mainly No Way Jose's, posse. He just basically destroyed everybody, hit a running Liger bomb. I refuse to call it anything else other than that on No Way Jose. And, he just wrecked everything. It was kind of one of those moments where it was like, wow, he really just destroyed everybody. I think he chokeslammed somebody on a barricade. He gorilla pressed one other guy to the ring post. He, like I said, did the powerbomb to No Way Jose. It's one of those situations where now he's starting to feel like a monster, but I'm hoping they don't have him go in the same direction as what they did with Braun Strowman, where they build him up, and just when it comes to the big match wins, he does nothing. I am hoping that is not the case with them, because I'm liking what they're doing with Lars. I wasn't a fan of him on NXT. I still laugh at that whole botch he did at NXT TakeOver Chicago, where he literally he got whiffed by the Black Mass kick by Aleister Black, and that's just one of those things where it's like, yeah, wow, that sucked. That really sucked. But yeah, there's all these other reports that are going on that, oh man, it's going to involve the Saudi Arabia show, which obviously a lot of people are probably still not happy after what happened to the last one that they had, where they crowned the best in the world to be Shane McMahon, which is stupid. They had Brock Lesnar squash Braun Strowman in a matter of minutes, which was really stupid. They had that train wreck of a main event where it was the Brothers of Destruction versus DX, which was stupid. It's very hard to say Crown Jewel was anything but stupid. So hopefully, when they do the Saudi Arabia show again, I believe it's in June or July, I am hoping that they deliver better matches. I think the first Saudi show definitely seemed like it was a success, but there is still room to make failure. And with WWE, they will always have that notion where they are going to fail up so bad. One thing that they've heavily rumored is that Goldberg is going to be back for that Saudi Arabia show. They're even hinting this idea that we're going to have Brock Lesnar versus Goldberg, champion versus champion, when SmackDown goes to Fox in October. And I literally look at this and I think, how can you not see that being the stupidest thing that they've done? We had the climactic finish. We had what we needed at WrestleMania, where Brock Lesnar and Goldberg, they beat each other up. We saw Suplex City, we saw spears, we saw jackhammers, we saw the F5, and that was it. That should have been done. Why do we need to have this match again? It makes absolutely no sense to have this. Because Brock Lesnar is a big name, and Brock Lesnar is getting paid most. He does these big matches and blah, blah, blah. That's fine. but have him do what he does before. Have him have some great matches with young and up-and-coming superstars. You look at the list of people who deserved to be in that main event level spot and what kind of matches that they could produce with Brock Lesnar, and you have a long list of people that could have done that. I'm still waiting for us to have the Randy Orton versus Brock Lesnar rematch, because the only time that we got it was at SummerSlam, and it ended in a technical finish. And the only time we had the rematch was in, I think it was the Chicago show, if I'm not mistaken. And that was just a house show. Why not build up to that match again? Maybe they could have that at this year's SummerSlam, where this time Randy Orton says, "Hey, I'm not going to, be the, praying. I'm not going to be the victim here. I'm going to be the hunter." And maybe he's the one who end up, busting Brock Lesnar open. Maybe it evolves into another great matchup at, say, I would say Survivor Series, honestly, because Brock is still technically under Raw contract. Randy Orton is a SmackDown contracted star. Instead of having the champion versus champion match again, where Brock Lesnar just owns, have it be a steel cage match or a Hell in a Cell match between Brock Lesnar and Randy Orton. I just saved you a storyline right there. Again, just build that up. Brock Lesnar versus Cesaro. People still would love to see that matchup. They would love to see how this guy Cesaro, who got drafted to Raw, has only had one match, and they've done nothing with him ever since then. Some people have been rumoring the fact that they're waiting for Sheamus to come back so they can continue the bar deal. Okay, while that's happening, don't have him just sit on his hands. Have him do some really great matches. Have him get in some really good feuds. Let's showcase Cesaro as the star that we know that he is. And, this keeps coming back up. So, I don't know if everybody remembers that Vince McMahon podcast that he was on with Stone Cold Steve Austin, where one of the things that he said that why Cesaro wouldn't get over was because he's Swiss. Are you kidding me? Okay, so you're saying that just because he's Swiss, that's why he's not getting over. Okay, so a guy like Wade Barrett, he couldn't get over because he was British? Is that why? A guy like Rusev couldn't get over because he's, Bulgarian? Somebody like, say, Lana, she can't get over because she's too ravishing? Bad example, but you get the point I'm trying to make. Having those kind of petty arguments is just really stupid. And it shows that Vince McMahon is not capable of producing good quality shows, and that his mind is in a different direction and it doesn't connect with the fans of today. It's so frustrating to see that. I mean, this whole deal where he comes out and he makes it seem like, oh, this was all my idea. Are you serious? Are you seriously going to take credit for somebody else's idea? Because I don't believe that this was Vince McMahon's idea at all. I believe that somebody else came up with it, and that somebody in the higher up said, "Hey, this guy has a really good idea. Let's repackage it. Let's make it your idea. You're the genius. You're the boss," and blah 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 blah. It's really just preposterous. It goes back to the CM Punk podcast, which I like to reference a lot because it's one of the most revealing, controversial, but also one of the best podcasts because it does open my eyes and remind me the kind of company that WWE can be. I'm not going to state the fact that it is what they are, because that's not always the case. There are more cases that they have actually done good for the sports entertainment industry than bad. But it does remind you that WWE is not perfect. It is not the perfect company. It is not the perfect organization it claims to be, and it is not the holier-than-thou, industry that it makes it seem like it is, because it is definitely not. It just boggles my mind seeing these kind of things happening. And they have, how many writers writing for both of these shows? maybe like 10, let's just say 10 for SmackDown, 20 for Raw. That's too many. You don't need that many people doing the writing deal, because all of these ideas, they're going to clash, and probably the stupider one is going to come out on top because it makes sense to Vince McMahon because he's not connecting to the fans. You gotta just, honestly, I would have a situation where people can sit down, they can have their ideas, maybe we could put the stuff on the board, and maybe it's like a vote deal. Maybe it's a democracy where they vote like, okay, who thinks that this idea is good? Who thinks that this idea is good? And if it's a, unanimous, if it's like one of those votes where there's a tie, then maybe Vince McMahon can join in and break the tie. I could see that happening. But the fact that Vince McMahon has so much of a hold on creativeness, and you see the result of that, of the Usos doing these stupid childish pranks to Revival, which a lot of people are not enjoying. So many people were just absolutely pissed at this whole idea of, the Icy Hot, and then they call it the Usi Hot, for that Revival apparently had on their, I think it was like on their attire or something like that. I can't remember exactly what it was. But it's just one of those things where it just doesn't make sense. We had the Usos on SmackDown, and they were just absolutely killing it with their gimmick. They were beating people up. They were literally making it seem like they had a gang mentality, where if you weren't a part of the Uso Penitentiary, you were an enemy, and if you're an enemy, you are going to be on your back looking up at the lights with the Usos with their arms raised up high. That's their gang mentality of it. But now they're just kind of like this goofy deal. It's just mind-boggling seeing that. Now, somebody could make the case for the Firefly Funhouse, which more people are enjoying than hating it. It started off as just one of those situations where it's like, okay, you got this, bird in a box. What's this all about? Now you got a creepy doll. What's this all about? Then next thing you know, here comes Bray doing this Mr. Rogers deal. And this past week, oh my God, the whole deal where we see, the bird in the box, he tore up this stuffed rabbit, and you basically see this rabbit basically just dismembered, dismantled, absolutely just wrecked. And Bray is just literally like, oh, it's okay to express yourself. You know what? You should be rewarded. And they talk about like a picnic, and you just see a bunch of kids dressed up almost like different ethnicities, I would say. It was bizarre. But they have this like faraway look in their eyes. They look like they're brainwashed. It's almost like Bray Wyatt is the Charles Manson for kids. I know that's a controversial statement to make, but you cannot deny, after seeing that episode of the Firefly Funhouse, that it feels like that. It's just, wow. I mean, the only other time I think I could almost have a character or an actor playing that kind of role and it almost seemingly working is honestly the Bad Times at the El Royale movie, where Chris Hemsworth played that kind of character, where he literally was, this good-looking guy. He's, having people, follow his way, and just, again, he seemed like a Charles Manson kind of leader. He was a cult leader. It was astonishing, and it's one of those things where, yeah, it's kind of controversial, but it's still one of those things that really stands out in people's minds. And this is another example of that, where we see this. Yes, it's probably uncomfortable for parents. For kids, some of them don't even know any better. They're just going to look at this and like, ooh, it's very nice. But there's some kids that are looking at that like, okay, this is kind of getting kind of scary. And it's good to have those kind of reactions, because then you're looking at it, and it's keeping you interested in the character. Now, as long as Bray Wyatt doesn't do something controversial, then it's fine, in all honesty. I'm just looking at this, and I just think to myself, man, the whole brainwashing kids deal, Bray Wyatt, it brings back the memories of him doing that with his feud with John Cena before the cage match, where, he had all the little children around the ring, they're in these like black choir robes, and then the lights go out, lights come back on, they just have the sheep masks. And you'll kind of notice in this last Firefly Funhouse deal, Bray Wyatt had a stuffed sheep that he was holding on to when he was closing that episode off. So it proves again that he is the leader and he is leading the sheep in a different direction. So it's there. I'm curious on where they're going with this with Bray Wyatt. I'm very curious to see this character hopefully propelling him to that level that he definitely needs to feel again. Because remember, he is a former WWE champion. He deserved that title. He should have kept that title on for quite a long time. But unfortunately, they just decided, no, we're just going to have him drop to Orton. For no reason whatsoever. And do not say because they needed Jinder Mahal to fight somebody good. They could have had a feud with Jinder and Bray, and it would have been awesome. I guarantee it. The one highlight of this week that I definitely hated the fact that I missed out on this, I actually shut off Monday Night Raw after the dusty finish between Roman Reigns and Drew McIntyre. As soon as I heard there was a rematch between the two of them, it's like, okay, this ought to be good. See what happens. Watching it. Here comes Shane. Here comes Elias. They beat down Roman. Ding, ding, ding. Why? We could have had a redemption for what was a lackluster event match at WrestleMania. And you had to do that. For what reason? For no reason. Honestly, you could have Elias, getting on the apron. He distracts Roman. Drew hits a Claymore. 1, 2, 3. Drew gets the victory. Drew gets his, momentum back. But they decided not to do that. They decided to beat down Roman and then continue this feud with Shane and Miz. They used a match that could have been better to propel a different rivalry. It made no sense. And listen, I am turning into a bit of a fan of The Miz. I'm not quite a misfit, but I am indeed a fan of The Miz's work. In the ring, I love his mic work. He's great. I honestly can say that I'm a big fan of his show with Maurice, Miz and Mrs. It's entertaining. It's relatable. It's something that everybody can absolutely enjoy. Now, with that being said, I don't like what they're doing with him right now. Miz definitely deserves to go on a different, he needs to go into a different feud. I would honestly say this. Have him beat Shane McMahon for the Best in the World trophy. Have Miz have that claim, and if they want to, and this is a heavy rumor, if they want to bring back CM Punk, have the Miz versus CM Punk maybe set for SummerSlam. This is a heavy rumor that they have expressed interest in bringing CM Punk back to WWE. I do not see that happening because of two people. One, Triple H. Two, Stephanie McMahon. Because you have to remember that there were people that reported that Triple H and Stephanie McMahon were absolutely pissed at the fact that CM Punk had the Tell All podcast where he mentioned their names, where he basically trashed the company that Vince McMahon worked to create, and they just absolutely won. I think there was a point where somebody said that Triple H wanted to kill CM Punk. It was that kind of hostility between the two of them. And now people are just going to make it seem like, oh, well, they're going to make, bygones be bygones and have CM Punk come back. Look, I am a CM Punk fan through and through. When I got the chance to meet him, I was literally just awestruck as well as just speechless. It was a great moment. He's a great man. I don't care what anybody says. There have been people that have said that he can be moody at times. You know something? People can be moody. It's their right. I mean, as long as he's not saying, something controversial like F your children or blah, 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 then it's fine. I mean, if he said that, then it might change my perspective on him, but I've not heard those kind of rumors. I've heard, oh, he gets moody at times. Oh, he, just doesn't really seem to like me or blah, blah. They have that right. They have the right to like and dislike people. It's their call. But, again, I don't see CM Punk coming back. I do not see CM Punk coming back even when Triple H and Stephanie take over. I honestly think that he is done with wrestling, at least in WWE. I think that he could come back to wrestling maybe for Impact Wrestling, just as maybe a part-time deal. Maybe he comes back for a New Japan deal, because I truly believe that his UFC MMA career is over. He thought that he could do it. Obviously, his last few fights have proven otherwise. He's now more focused on being an announcer for the MMA UFC world. Hey, props to him. I'm totally okay with this. I just don't see him wrestling in WWE in the foreseeable future, if at all. There's just too much animosity, there's too much hostility for that to even happen. Speaking of animosity, I mean, you have to feel bad for Luke Harper. This is a guy who literally has given so much for the company. Over his career, you've seen what he's done. He's done the Wyatt family gimmick. He had a great series of matches with the Usos and his partner, Eric Rowan. He won the Intercontinental title from Dolph Ziggler. He even had one of the best matches at the TLC pay-per-view. A ladder match between him and Dolph Ziggler for the IC title. It was great. It was fantastic. And then he had the follow-up ladder match at the following year's WrestleMania. Then, of course, we had him doing the Bludgeon Brother. Well, no. He reunited with Bray Wyatt. That's right. He did the Bray Wyatt deal, and then he went to Bludgeon Brothers. But yeah, he reunited with Bray. They did that whole deal with him and Randy Orton. He was in contention for the WWE Championship, which says a lot. That shows you how much faith they had in him to reach that point, for him to be like, okay, we trust in his ability. We trust that he can put on a good matchup. Let's have him face off against AJ Styles. Let's have him face off against Randy Orton. Both incredible athletes, and both, I do believe, that really look at these two matches and say, hey, they do a fantastic job, and he is a fantastic worker. Then we, of course, had him doing the whole deal with the Bludgeon Brothers deal, where he won the tag team titles, and then Eric Rowan got injured, and then he decided to take some time off to work on, to take care of an injury of his own. And he didn't make his return until WrestleMania, where he was onto the Giant Memorial Battle Royal. We had that great spot where him and Braun Strowman are looking at each other, they're staring down. I would have loved to have seen, Braun Strowman versus Luke Harper. I still think that would be an excellent matchup between the two of them. It would be a battle of the former Wyatt family members. We've never really got that kind of matchup between the two of them. I would love to see it. And a little bit after WrestleMania, Luke Harper requested his release. He made a statement basically saying that he only requested it. He loves working with the people. He loves everything that they've done for him. Showed no animosity, showed nothing like that. And WWE just said, no, you're stuck with us. In fact, we're going to be putting on 6 more months of your contract. So now Luke Harper is stuck with the contract until next year, I believe it is. And what have they been doing with him? Nothing. They have literally just been keeping him in limbo because they think, hey, you're still valuable to us, just not right now. That is exactly the mindset I believe that they have right now. And I really, absolutely hate that. Because Luke Harper doesn't deserve to be in limbo. He doesn't deserve to be just shackled in here just because they feel like he would get over somewhere else. It just is mind-boggling to hear that. And they, of course, bring out this clause that was actually brought up to me by another podcaster, that apparently they can add time onto their contract if ever there was a period of time where they were injured, where they had some kind of situation in their life where it had them take time off. It's one of those things where it's like, okay, so during the time when Eric Rowan was injured, what plans would you have had for Luke Harper? Would he have feuded with, the New Day by himself? Would he have paired up with Braun Strowman? Would he have paired back up with Bray Wyatt and continue to tag team? Because there were no rumors from my knowledge that was going to happen. There was nobody that was saying, oh yeah, he was going to be set up for a major push. He was going to be put into, a U.S. title picture or the Intercontinental title picture. He was going to do this. That's not what I've heard. So why keep him on if you're going to still do absolutely nothing with him? It makes no sense. See, at least with Luke Harper, it's understandable because they've been just not giving him the short end of the stick for quite a while now. Where in the case of Sasha Banks, where I've talked about this before, Sasha has done quite a bit since coming to the main roster. She has won the Raw Women's title a total of 4 times, I believe. She's had some great quality matches. People are still talking about them. She became the first ever WWE Women's Tag Team Champions with Bayley. I don't see any reason for her to be bitter about anything. It's just one of those things where it shows that fame can definitely get you completely messed up in the head. Fame can definitely affect your subconscious, I think that's what I'm saying. Because you have all that fame going to your head, your ego is going to just grow and grow and grow, and it is going to create a monster. It really is. It's just absolutely insane. I think I got a little sidetracked because one of the things I wanted to say was a major highlight for this week that I wanted to talk about before I go into commercial break. Kofi Kingston is definitely an all-star for this week. Having to defend the WWE Championship twice in a matter of 24 hours. He defended it against Daniel Bryan, and then on SmackDown he defended it against Sami Zayn and AJ Styles. Yes, both of these matches probably had predictable outcomes, but at the same time they were really good matches. They were absolutely phenomenal. I mean, there were even points during the SmackDown title match where I watched this and I thought, holy shit, Sami Zayn could be the champion. He hit that Blue Thunder Bomb 3 times, 3 consecutive times, and after the third time, I'm like, oh my gosh, is this going to happen? 1, 2, kick out. But people were still getting into it, and you saw that. Sami Zayn is still a credible character that people want to see, in these huge main event level deals. AJ Styles is AJ Styles. He does a phenomenal job. He is not one of those guys that I look at and say, hey, he's going to be, the next John Cena. No. He is the first AJ Styles, and he's the only AJ Styles. He's been a heel. He's been a babyface. He's done the faction deal. He's won the WWE title. He's won the US title. He's been one of those guys that has definitely earned his spot. He's put on great matches with James Ellsworth of all people. James Ellsworth of all people. And people could try to complain about him. And I'll literally be like, yeah, no, he's done better than what you guys are giving him credit for. But Kofi Kingston has done just as incredible, if not even a tad more incredible than AJ Styles. The 11-year journey culminated this past WrestleMania. Kofi Kingston finally got what he wanted, what he deserved, and that was the WWE Championship. So many years of just being told, you're not going to do it. You can't do it. You can't do it. No, you can't. He finally proved them wrong. By winning the WWE title, he became the first African American to win the WWE title. He created history. He absolutely created an unforgettable moment at WrestleMania, and it was fantastic. It was phenomenal. It was an unforgettable moment, and nobody can take that away from him. Even if they try to end Kofi Kingston's title run abruptly, there's no way they can take that moment away from him. He made history. He is indeed a game changer, and he is indeed going to be a Hall of Famer, I guarantee it. So guys, going to take a quick commercial break, come back, talk more about wrestling, as well as the big announcement of the future of the Game Changer podcast.
Check out the guys over at Eclectic Media Project. They bring you podcasts such as Musically Challenged. Whose podcast is it anyway? Want to hear something interesting? and their newest podcast, Page 3.14 News. Check them out on Podbean and iTunes at Eclectic Media Project, on their website at www.eclecticmediaproject.com. Check them out as they are the home with a little something for almost everyone.
Smart Money, AJ Jensen, Chris Lockman, one of the best duos in all of central Wisconsin. Join them as they discuss a lot of great hot topic wrestling deals, such as features in WWE, Ring of Honor, stuff in central Wisconsin as well as the entire state of Wisconsin, AEW, New Japan, and many more. Check them out on their podcast, the Smart Money Podcast. Proud friends of the Game Changer Podcast. You're listening to the Game Changer Podcast here on Spreaker.com. So guys, this is indeed Pro Talk Wrestling here on the Game Changer Podcast. I am NateFNGreat. WWE has definitely been quite the interesting deal for me. And all throughout this time, I've definitely been trying to, defend them. I'm reaching the point now where it's very hard to do that. I've literally gone on record this past Monday to quote the Game Grumps were literally the final. One of the biggest rages that Aaron Hansen had was with Battle Kid. He basically just goes on this deal where he just keeps screaming, no, 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 F everything. Just goes absolutely insane. It's just, it reached that point. So, I probably will indeed be looking at different options for wrestling if WWE continues to be this bad, especially Raw. Raw has reached a point where they have hit a breaking point. They've hit a button that they should not have hit. But, guys, what's really going to be cool is that we do have another wrestling promotion in the works right now. AEW seemingly has their TV deal made with Turner Broadcasting. They're probably going to debut on TNN, if I'm not mistaken. So it's more than likely going to happen during the October time. I doubt it's going to be a deal where they're going to pair up against, it's going to be, it's going to be like a Monday Night Raw 3.0, because you can't say it's a 2.0, because the first Monday Night Raw was WWE versus WCW. Second one was WWE versus TNA. Third one would be, AEW versus WWE. I don't think they're going to go through that. I think that's very smart. So we do have, Double or Nothing coming up in the upcoming weeks. And with that, I am going to be announcing that on the week of AEW Double or Nothing, which is actually just 2 weeks away. Wow, that's kind of crazy when I think about it. AEW presents Double or Nothing in Las Vegas, Nevada. So many great matches there. So the week before, I am going to be holding an all-elite week of wrestling. So you're going to have some very unique content going into this. You're going to have some really great, memorable guests appearing on the show. One of which I can definitely announce will be the man who is off topic. That definitely comes into any debate, anything wrestling related, with just a hint of turbo. That being Joshua Yeager from Pro Wrestling Off Topic. Well, I think it's formerly Pro Wrestling Off Topic. But Joshua, you've definitely heard, who has been on the show before. He pairing up with my arch nemesis, Zach Hagenbusher, the wrestling guru, whatever. Joshua will be a part of the All Elite Week of Wrestling. So there will be one other guest that I can guarantee will be a part of that show. I'm definitely talking to one of the members of the Valkyrie to be a part of that show. So we'll see how well we can get that to work. I think it's going to be great. So obviously, over the last few weeks, I've been hyping up this whole list of my wrestling favorites, whether it's wrestling, guys in wrestling, women in wrestling, as well as tag teams in wrestling. So let's continue that streak right now. And I will even announce one of my favorite matches from 2005, which was my first full year as a WWE fan as well as wrestling fan, in my opinion. So let's start off with favorite tag team. This week's favorite tag team for me is the Usos. Usos, yes, I know. This past week was not one of their finer moments, but it's a small, smidge, bleak deal in the long, illustrious career that they've had. They've had some entertaining shticks when they first came on the scenes. They had that whole, tribal entrance that they did, which I thought was kind of cool. They had some great feuds with people like the Wyatt family, the Miz's, Miz and Mizdow. They had some great matches with the New Age Outlaws. Some really great, awesome content and great matches that they've had. It's really hard for me to look at some of my favorite tag teams and not have the Usos on this list. It's very hard for me to choose against them. So that was easy for me to pick them out. So for favorite women for this week, favorite wrestling women that I'm going to highlight on this one is the one and only Thunder Rosa, who I got the chance to finally meet one-on-one this past WrestleCon in New York. And I have fallen in love with Thunder Rosa's work in Lucha Underground, where she was Cobra Moon. She definitely has a very great character that is just living inside of her. And her matches as Thunder Rosa are just as great as her matches as Cobra Moon. So definitely, guys, if you get the chance, check that out. And be sure to also check out the interview that I had with her. It was a lot of fun getting the chance to talk with her, getting the chance to be able to, communicate with her and be able to ask her some questions about her, great moments in wrestling, great moments in Lucha Underground. It's just a very fun interview. So definitely, if you get a chance, go check that out. It is exclusively here on the Game Changers Spreaker.com site. Definitely check that out. Then we have the favorite male wrestler of the week. This one was a pretty obvious pick for me to do. I've loved this guy since he changed up his gimmick. When he went viral on the social media deal, he was one of the first few guys that I started following on Twitter. That being the broski himself, woo, 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 you know it, Mr. Zack Ryder. Zack has been one of those guys who I've looked and just been absolutely entertained. He has definitely given us some of the best moments in wrestling, whether it was an entertainment value or a wrestling value. His win, his feud with Dolph Ziggler was great. His match at TLC was the perfect build-up, the perfect way to culminate that huge run, getting him that career-defining moment. And even at WrestleMania 32, they can't take this away from him. He won the ladder match to kick off that year's WrestleMania for the Intercontinental Championship. It was a great moment. It was an absolutely shocking moment, but it was one of those moments where you just enjoyed the fact that Zack Ryder is indeed still one of the best, and he is still the guy that people can definitely rely on to put on a great quality matchup and give you an unforgettable moment. It would, I just cannot talk any more positively about Zack Ryder than I have. And again, everything that he's accomplished here, and one of his biggest accomplishments is definitely the fact that he's going to be tying the knot to Chelsea Green. Zack Ryder, Chelsea Green, congratulations to you both. You definitely both are meant for each other. You deserve all the happiness in the world. All right, so now we get into the favorite matchup of 15 years as a wrestling fan. Last week, I mentioned that the Lita versus Trish Stratus matchup at Raw in Charlotte, North Carolina. Was my favorite of that year in 2004. Now we go into 2005, and I recently just watched this match again with Willie T from the Kings of Rings podcast when I was over in the New York area. We got to watch WrestleMania 21, and we watched the matchup that was a major highlight in the career of both of these individuals, and that was indeed at the Staples Center in WrestleMania 21, that being Shawn Michaels versus Kurt Angle. Now, the build-up for this was just absolutely incredible, to say the least. You had the Royal Rumble, which is definitely one of the first few spots that you can look at and say, hey, this is what we're going to probably be getting at WrestleMania. And it's definitely one of those things where you watch it and you think, okay, this is indeed the road to WrestleMania. This is indeed where we're going to see something, something different. We're going to see something very, very special happening here. And it definitely showcased that in this event. We had JBL defeating Kurt Angle earlier that night and the Big Show in a triple threat match for the WWE title. We saw Randy Orton come up short against Triple H for the World Heavyweight title. We had Edge defeating Shawn Michaels in that night. So both Shawn Michaels and Kurt Angle were actually in the Royal Rumble match. So they were one of the few people in that event that pulled double duty. And the thing about this is that Kurt Angle wasn't even announced for the Royal Rumble. He actually took Nunzio's spot in the Rumble matchup. And as soon as he came in, he just, throwing people left and right, doing suplex after suplex after suplex after suplex after suplex. Angle slam, angle slam. He tries to do, angle slam to Shawn. Shawn goes for a super kick. Angle tries to do the ankle lock, but Shawn Michaels is able to counter. Kurt Angle is able to save himself. Super kick. Kurt Angle is tossed over the top rope after that kick, and eliminated. Kurt Angle, his dream of main eventing WrestleMania for a third time, seemingly up in smoke. Now, of course, that didn't seem to be the case because he did make it to the finals of a tournament to determine the number one contender for the WWE title for WrestleMania 21, which was ultimately won by John Cena. So that's when his title run came up in smoke. After Kurt Angle got eliminated for the Royal Rumble, he came back in. He tossed Shawn Michaels on the outside. He grabbed some steel steps, bashed it over Shawn Michaels' head, locked in the ankle lock. And this is where we're starting to plant the seeds for the rivalry that is between the two of them. After No Way Out happened, after Kurt Angle fought a valiant fight, but unfortunately came up short to John Cena, Shawn Michaels came up to Teddy Long, who is appearing on that Raw to try and hopefully sign Batista. He said, I want you to go to SmackDown and deliver a message to Kurt Angle that Shawn Michaels is challenging him to a match at WrestleMania. A few weeks later, we had the street fight between Shawn Michaels and Edge, and it was a rematch from the Royal Rumble. Shawn Michaels came out victorious, but then Kurt Angle came out, beat down Shawn Michaels, hit him with an angle slam. Shawn is just beaten, battered, bloody. He is just an absolute wreck. And Kurt Angle grabs the mic, goes to Shawn Michaels, and he says, as far as your challenge goes, I accept. So we get the matchup. And later on that week, Shawn Michaels returned the favor. He came to SmackDown, beat up Kurt Angle. And we get a really good build-up going into the matchup with Shawn Michaels and Kurt Angle, where basically they're talking about the matchup. One of the things I loved was the promo that Shawn Michaels had after his street fight with Edge and after beating up Kurt Angle. He basically says, as I was getting those stitches put in my head, I was thinking to myself, where is all this rage coming from? Where is this doubt coming from? And it's the doubt of thinking that he could not beat Kurt Angle at WrestleMania, and that he's going to showcase that he can beat Kurt Angle at WrestleMania, and he's going to give him the very best. Kurt Angle, his reasoning for accepting the matchup is that he feels like he is the best. He is indeed, the greatest sports entertainer, in this generation. He called it an insult to everybody because when he was winning a gold medal, when he done that, he did not get asked the question, how did it feel to win the gold medal? He got asked the question, when you going pro, Kurt? Hey, did you see Shawn Michaels? He wrestled Bret Hart in an Iron Man matchup at WrestleMania for the WWE title. He was very great. It was one of the best ever. And that's why Kurt Angle accepted that, because he says that he wanted to prove that he is the best against Shawn Michaels. And he did all these great things to kind of, I guess, staple that point, we got the, jobber ladder match that he had against a random guy for his gold medal. He had a match with Marty Jannetty. He had that so entertaining segment with Sherry Martel, the late great sensational Sherry, Hall of Famer I should also mention. He just definitely went on this rampage to prove that he is indeed the best. And Shawn Michaels wants to prove that he is indeed the very best as well. Then we get to the matchup. We get the introductions. We get one of the best staging entrance stages that we'll ever see. And all it starts is with a stare down between Kurt Angle and Shawn Michaels. The match starts, and we get a different side of Shawn Michaels, where Shawn Michaels actually tries to out-mat wrestle Kurt Angle. So many people are just watching this, and they're like, whoa, this is different. We don't usually see this kind of deal with, Shawn Michaels. Kurt Angle tries to, do the same, but Shawn Michaels seems like he has a counter for everything. Then we see the match getting a little more brutal. As soon as Kurt Angle gets the first strike in, that's when the brawl starts ensuing. We see a lot of just heavy, momentous shots. Kurt Angle does an angle slam on the ring post, which was just absolutely spine-tingling. It's just one of those things you watch, and it's just like, oh, Shawn, no. It's just absolutely well done. I absolutely looked at this matchup, and I thought, oh, geez, that sucks. We see a lot of great, technical style between, Shawn Michaels and Kurt Angle. We see Kurt Angle and Shawn hitting some of their classic moves. Kurt tries to go for a moonsault, but misses. Shawn Michaels goes to the top rope, but gets hit with a super angle slam. Shawn kicks out. Shawn gets locked in the ankle lock so many times, but Shawn is able to get out of it. And we see then Shawn Michaels and Kurt Angle just beating each other to a pulp. And we see Kurt Angle grabbing Shawn by his head, and he's just saying, you are going to tap out. You're going to tap out. Just tap out. Shawn breaks it up. Boom. Super kick. We think that's over. 1, 2. Kurt Angle kicks out of it. Shawn is crawling to the ropes. He's crawling to the ropes. He's trying to get himself back up. But just like a trapdoor spider, Kurt Angle grabs the ankle. He locks it in. He grapevines it. He is just holding it. He is just wrenching it. He is just ensuring that Shawn Michaels cannot get out of this. He can't get out of this move. Shawn Michaels, he is just trying so hard. He is just trying to crawl. He's trying to crawl. He's trying so hard. He's just holding on to every single fiber of his being not to tap out. But unfortunately, Shawn Michaels cannot resist the pain. He taps out to the ankle lock. Kurt Angle gets the victory here on the grandest stage of them all, WrestleMania. And while Kurt Angle had his arm raised in victory, everybody applauded both of these guys because they put on one hell of a matchup. It was just a spectacle. It was just absolutely everything that you could ever imagine, if not more. It was just great. They had a rematch, I should say, at Vengeance, which was, it was okay. It wasn't one of those things where it's like, oh, it's great. Great. I think it would probably be the second best match that they had. No, I think that this next one would be, because they had an Iron Man rematch at WWE Homecoming on the USA Network, which was just as good, if not, probably could almost say even better. It ended in a draw, unfortunately, and then they had their final matchup on the January 2006 Raw. I think it was a couple weeks after New Year's was done. I think that was when it was. And that was where Shawn Michaels picked up the victory. So in that rivalry, Shawn Michaels was victorious, but it was still a great series of matches. I definitely would say that, the WrestleMania match was definitely my favorite. Second favorite of that rivalry would be the Iron Man match. Then you have the rematch at Vengeance, and then you would have the matchup on Raw, would be my way of putting it. But it was a really fun-filled event. It was a fun-filled rivalry. It was a fun-filled year in 2005. So, yeah, those are my favorites for this week. So hopefully you guys enjoyed them. Be sure to tune in next week as we get closer and closer to the SummerSlam extravaganza, in which we find out who is indeed my favorite wrestler, men, women, tag team, as well as my favorite matchup of this year. So, with that being said, let's get into the big announcement. So, as I mentioned on top of the show, Rant with Ant, RWA, one of the best podcasts that you will ever hear, is indeed closing its doors. And another podcast that's going to be closing their doors seemingly is Who Got Next. I am very saddened to hear this, and I'm still in that denial phase right now that this is even happening. But one thing that came out of this that almost seemed like the saying going of every dark cloud there is a silver lining is the fact that I was contacted by one of the members of the Wrestle Addict Radio team, that being King Ricky. And he told me about a conversation that he had with Rant, and that Ant had one final request before closing the pages, before closing this chapter of his life, and he said, and I quote, "Get the Game Changer, get them and put them on Wrestle Addict Radio." So King Ricky has given me the invite. He has given me the information as to what's going on for that. So guys, I've accepted. The Game Changer podcast will be a part of Wrestle Addict Radio in the near future. It is going to be an absolutely can't-miss deal. For those of you that are wrestling fans, hopefully you enjoy these wrestling-related episodes. Hopefully you also enjoy the pop culture episodes that we do, whether we're talking about comic books, whether we're talking about movies, whether we're talking about video games. Whatever we find our thing to talk about, we will definitely, hit on these facts. They're going to be an absolutely great podcast. It's going to definitely be one of those things that I am very much looking forward to in the forthcoming years. Looking forward to having new listeners, looking forward to having new people on the show, looking forward to definitely, you guys, you'll have to see what I have planned for the month of August. It's going to be an absolutely can't-miss event. Again, 15 years as a wrestling fan. I got to do something monumental for that. And I even had a little bird in my ear tell me that I should definitely get a certain sweet something to come in to basically, celebrate the occasion. So, might get that chance. We'll see. All right, so with that being said, the only other thing that I could think about that I could talk about is that I did make the challenge on Twitter to have one more prediction battle between myself and Mr. Ant from Rant with Ant. He's gladly accepted. It is indeed going down to see who is indeed going to have the first and only victory in this rivalry between myself and Mr. Rant with Ant. So be sure to tune into that, guys. The prediction battle will be taking place for AEW Double or Nothing. There will be a prediction show that will take place during the week of All Elite, week of wrestling, brought to you by the Game Changer. It's going to be a definitely fun-filled event. So I've been NateFNGreat, guys. Definitely check us out on our Facebook fan page. Be sure to give us a follow on Twitter at RealFNGame. There's also a lot of people that you want to see in the description here of this podcast. Be sure you give them a follow, give them a like, subscribe to them on their YouTube channels. Definitely give them the love that they deserve. So for myself and the Game Changing Podcast, the Game Changer Podcast, whatever you want to call it, thank you guys so much for listening in. And it's going to be an absolutely wonderful year for 2019. So, with that being said, I've been NateFNGreat. You've been listening to Pro Talk Wrestling here on Spreaker.com, as well as on iHeartRadio, Spotify, YouTube, SoundCloud, and hopefully on Google Podcasts. So, thank you guys so much, and I will talk to you in the next episode. Bye-bye.